Okay, cool. Thank you. That was a good one. We'll move on to the next one. What are the things to look out for when typically an employee or a potential candidate is evaluating a startup job?
Okay, startup jobs is not for everybody. You need a different kind of a personality to survive in a startup ecosystem. Irrespective of the number of years of experience that you have, the kind of work that you're supposed to do in a startup is very different to the kind of work that you will be doing in an established organization. Here in a startup, it's like a warfare. It's like being ready for a battlefield on a daily basis. You need to be very independent as an individual to do your work.
Right.
You will not have the luxury of a manager or a boss to tell you or mentor you or guide you. Because startup is running with a lean team any which ways. They have, for a particular skill, hired just one or two guys. They do not have like the full-blown team ki brainstorming kar lo, group discussion kar lo, then you make a decision.
Right.
Everybody is just hired for the role that they're supposed to do. So you as an individual need to be somebody who knows your job really well, can work independently, have the passion to expand your horizons or think beyond.
Learn, basically.
Learn as well. But think beyond from the perspective that even the CEO, the founder, that has this dream with which he's kind of made this company, will not on a day-to-day basis get into your area of work. He'll leave it to you to kind of execute that thing. And there is no definition that from A you have to reach to point P. It's your choice whether you want to go from A to P or from to beyond to R or Z as well. So you need to be somebody who's independent, who has the passion to not just do what you're being told, but just expand and think what are the various possibilities. And it is also a place where typically there would be a lot of interpersonal conflicts. Much more than a mature organization. Because again, the decisions that are happening because that individual who's in that domain thinks this is the right thing to do. Now, and we've had cases in one of the startups, the tech head said, this is the way I'm going to make my product. The team which was operating on the ground, who was going to use that product, said this is not going to work. This is not what we need. But the tech head said, no, you will adjust to this because I am the right person to tell you that this is what needs to happen. Now the CEO depends,
on which side the CEO kind of goes.
Correct.
Correct. So I mean, for a CEO or for a founder also, it's kind of difficult, right? I mean, they're like it's their own baby, right? So it'll depend on, honestly, if it's a longer term thing, probably the CEO will say, let's go with the tech.
Correct.
If it's a shorter term thing where there's revenue, is more focus on revenue, he'll say, okay, fine, let's go with business. Nahi yaar, let's build it out the way the business wants it to, right? But I think this happens. This is very common. This is very common.
This is very common. So these kind of conflicts, how do you navigate these conflicts? How do you be that thick-skinned an individual that on a daily basis you will stand up for what you believe in,
right.
And that you're very sure that this is what you're telling your senior stakeholders is the right thing to do.
Right.
So it basically, startup ecosystem is not for everybody. You need to be very careful. You need to make that decision of hiring a startup if you've never had that experience. With a lot of thought process. Speak to a lot of people who've been in the startup ecosystem, like Utkarsh, or watch his videos for that matter, to get that understanding of what basically happens inside that.
So I'll just take up one point which Dora said, right? So she said, stand up for your what you really believe in, right? Do stand up, don't lose your job. Right? No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes, you need to take such calls and say, boss, no, this is not the right way to go about it. And, I will not kind of, compromise, for a particular thing. But yes, most of the times you can kind of, figure out a way, you can talk to people. One good thing, at least, that I have seen in almost in all startups is that there is a very open and healthy conversation that goes around, right? Because people know.
Just to add on to that, these set of people actually become the core group for
Right.
the organization,
Right.
the one that the founder kind of keeps going back to,
Right.
to brainstorm decisions.
Right.
Because typically most of the founders are also not coming with a huge years of experience
Right.
behind them, right?
Right.
They're also learning on the job,
Right.
along with this set of core trusted
Right.
people.
Right.
So if this team kind of works together, they kind of keep growing the business.
Right.
Money wise,
Yeah.
potential wise, obviously there's a lot of returns that this set of people can kind of get.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, actually. People tend to forget that founders themselves are going through their own sort of HR, human capital,
Yes.
and self learning challenges as well, right? I mean, the expectation is कि यार ये तो founder है, ये तो CEO है, इसको सब पता होगा, right? या इसके पास बहुत पैसे होंगे, right? So कई बार होते भी हैं, right? So not that it's not there, but I think that also is a very important point. A lot of people don't realize that the founder or even the founding teams for that matter, they're also learning on the job, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they've taken the onus on themselves to kind of lead the way and be the captain of the ship. But yeah, I mean that's a good point. I mean people are also learning. Okay, great. Now I'll come to the salary and the money part of it, right? Now typically this is a question I get asked a lot, right? Ki, from a salary and a money part, right? What is the approach that a person should take, right? So typically what are the things to ask about, right? Is it okay to talk about money, right? When you are kind of going in for an interview, and I want to bring in the HR perspective over here as somebody who's worked in a startup, who's worked in this environment for a long time. When I was doing this earlier, I never used to think about money. It was more about the learning and the growth opportunity. कि कुछ भी काम करा लो यार, हम कर लेंगे, right? And that's the way that I have learned. That's the way that I have grown, right? But as you kind of become a little bit more senior, right, or get to the mid levels, right, I think it's important for us to also understand that money matters are important, right? Because you don't want to kind of become part of a system and basically kind of feel a little disillusioned, saying कि यार कम पैसों में आ गया या आ गई, right? And I should have asked for more, so I think those are the kind of things, right? So is it okay from an HR perspective, right? When should somebody who's coming into the system ask about money or talk about money, right? And should it be right in the beginning, right at the end, somewhere in the middle, right? So what has been your experience, right? And I know there's no one answer, but what has been your experience and what would you recommend?
Sure. Money matters, definitely money matters. But as you said, Utkarsh, you as an individual may look for a work experience in that kind of an environment. You may have aspirations to grow your own business later on, and for you, this money at this point in time doesn't matter. You are in there to understand the startup ecosystem. For me as an individual, because I need to run my EMIs, I have a family to support, etc., monthly income is a key consideration for me, and money will matter. Typically, my kind of people are more, your kind of people are less. So money discussions always kind of happen in the organization. You should, as a candidate, definitely ask what's the money on the table right in the beginning.
Right in the beginning.
Right in the beginning.
Right.
There should not be any room for ambiguity. But I would also say, and I think you rightly kind of mentioned this just a few questions back, be careful about inflating your compensation in the market, because you might get lured by a startup to say, we have a lot of money, tum aa jao bas, your salary is going to be this much, and you may jump at that offer, because obviously who will say no to a money. But we have had a lot of people who have had to leave that high paying job, and now they're standing in the market as less because they were in their compensations got inflated,
right?
And the job reality is different. So we go back to the compensation reports, right? Somebody with 5 years of experience should be paid this much, but you're already at a higher range.
Correct.
Now, so these people actually take up the next jobs with a lesser comp. They will tell the HR, I'm willing to, because I don't have a job
very
right
important
now.
Point, guys. People don't realize it, right? And obviously, I think it also happens. Obviously, you kind of take a call based on what you're getting in hand, but people don't realize it, that it kind of also has a huge potential to backfire as well.
Exactly. Be careful of that. Don't get lured into higher compensations.
Right.
My recommendation to candidates would be talk money. Be careful of the compensation range that your skill set or your experience demands right now in the market. And it's very easy to do, right? If you are a fresher, you anyway don't have a say in what comp that you're getting, right? But if you are switching jobs, typically a 20-30% increment hike is considered as an average hike. So you would know that, my experience in the market is this much, or my colleagues are getting paid this much. Or these compensation reports, as I said, exist. So it's very easy to understand where in the market should your compensation range be at. Pick up a job in that compensation range itself. However, if you know that the startup has the potential to pay you more, get payouts more in benefits and not in your income or your CTC.
So when you say benefits, you say, ESOPs or, some other kind of, benefits.
ESOPs, medical insurance.
Medical insurance.
You could, we have had candidates negotiate more on the number of leaves that they're getting.
Oh, okay.
Or
interesting.
on the working model.
So, flexi and I won't be in office every day. And especially now during this phase, right? I think, that's something.
Exactly.
And when you come to negotiation, I mean, just a quick one on that. Is it okay to negotiate? Do we become bad guys if we kind of, say ki nahi yaar itna nahi and all that, like Mandwali and all? Do we become bad guys?
HR does not appreciate negotiation. Okay,
but it's important,
but
right?
it is important. From a candidate standpoint, you should negotiate. We like candidates who know what their true worth is.
Okay. That's an important point, guys.
But we do not like guys or candidates who are greedy. So there's a very thin line. There are a lot of candidates who actually misuse this, right? While they're negotiating a salary, that they would know ki in the market, this is the compensation and I should demand, right? What we know as HR is that my existing employees in that particular skill, जिसको मैंने last month ही hire किया है, वो salary में नहीं है. So there is no way that I will give you a higher salary, right? So we know the compensation ranges that are there in the market. So don't try and be greedy with us. But if we are hiring you at a lesser comp because we have, say, a budgetary constraint or we, want to kind of obviously play smart and save cost for our founder, you have all the right. You should negotiate, but know the maximum limit. Know where you need to stop. So don't be immature about negotiations.
Right.
There are a lot of books, and I am a book reader, author, but there are books that exist which will teach you good negotiations. So read them. It's going to help you negotiate your salary better. Be aware of the market realities. Also be aware of the HR that you are in discussions with. A lot of startups also do not have a lot of mature HR teams in play because they're also kind of saving cost in HR. They're younger. They will not have probably experience in the compensation. If you get that chance that you can sense that I can play numbers with this HR person, by all means go ahead and do it. But obviously not at the cost of inflating your salary. But if there's a matured HR sitting there, be very sure after one or two discussions, she's going to the other candidate, not you.
Right. And I think that's a fabulous point. I mean, don't be greedy, guys. Like Dora said, there is a thin line, right? Don't cross it, right? So HR knows the salary ranges that exist, right? So obviously kind of, when you go out and, pitch your salary, it's okay to negotiate.
Yes.
It's not okay to be greedy.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think great. I think fabulous point.